Hello, welcome to the video. I think you know who I am. I'm Prophet Kyle, and if you are here, it's because you want to get to know me a little bit better. And I must say that I'm flattered that you would like to get to know me better. And in this video, I'm going to talk about myself. Now, it's not because I'm a gringo creído. No, well, it's because you want to get to know me better. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about why I speak Spanish. Next, I'll talk to you about why it matters to me that Latinos such as yourself learn English. And lastly, I want to talk about the 5 struggles that I had and students such as yourself have had learning, in my case, Spanish, in your case, English. Now, I will be doing this video entirely in English, so if until now my English is too difficult to understand, I would advise you to watch the pre-intermediate video, which is in Spanish. At the same time, if you understand almost everything, fantastic. You will be seeing some slides that are in English, and that will obviously help you a lot. But enough talking, enough introductions. Let's get to the real introductions. Let's get started, shall we? Now, if you're here, you've probably already tried to learn English. You've probably already reached a conversational level of English, but you're stuck. The first thing I want to say is that if you weren't able to get the level of English that you want, if you're still not able to get the level of English that you want, it's not your fault. You just need the correct guidance. As well, there is a lot of information everywhere, and it can be confusing to know how to actually reach fluency. Many times, this overload of information can take you further away from fluency. Not only that, in the case of the institutes, they're not designed to actually teach you English. In many cases, they're just designed to make you money. The universities and schools, on the other hand, are designed to make you pass exams. Both of their goals isn't your success. There are good teachers, I've met a lot of them, but they don't have the power to make changes to the system when they take orders from corrupt and or greedy administrations. If you've ever thought that these administrations don't want you to actually learn English, you are probably correct. They aren't putting your success first. They're thinking about their money. I'm different because I actually want you to reach your goals. If you are like my students, you want something better for yourself. You want to study for your master's degree abroad. You want a job at a foreign company, either in your country or in another one, that will give you a better salary and greater benefits. You want to immigrate to get more security for your family. You and I know that English is a tool to create a better future for you, and I want to show you the best way to do it. Now, who is this training for? This training is for who? So this training is for you if you take learning English in the most efficient and unconventional way seriously. If you're a person that takes action and is ready to invest in your education and future. If you aren't satisfied with your current situation and you know that you deserve better. If you're tired of gurus and institutes making you promises that you know they can't keep, that they can't fulfill. And my goal during this training, this is just the introduction video, there's going to be training as well. My goal is to show you that the only way that you're going to get an English that opens the doors of opportunity is by learning an impressive English from someone who understands how your brain thinks and works. Now, who am I if you don't know who I am already? Well, I'm a language learning expert. I'm a fluent speaker of Spanish, Swedish, English, and now I'm learning Russian. I'm the creator of one of the most powerful and dynamic methodologies for Spanish speakers. I'm the teacher for hundreds of English students from all over Latin America, and my mission, if you haven't already guessed, if you don't already know, is to help as many Latinos as possible reach fluency so that they can improve the quality of their life. Now, you might be asking yourself, why does it matter to someone like me? Well, when I was 18 years old, I didn't know much about Latin America. Like the typical middle-class Canadian, my family went on vacation to resorts in places like Margarita Island in Venezuela, Puerto Plata in the Dominican Republic, and Varadero in Cuba. But if you know something about the resorts for gringos in Latin America, they don't represent the real Latino culture. That changed in 2009 when I began university. I no longer lived in a small town. I now lived in the big city of Vancouver in a dormitory surrounded by students from all parts of the world. Within a few weeks, I became friends with a Chilango from Mexico City named Alan. Like any good Mexican would, he introduced me to the Mexican Latina culture as quickly as possible. He took me to salsa classes, he talked to me about the political situation in Mexico, and most importantly, he introduced me to Mexican tacos. I can remember the first time that I tried the carne asada, the tongue taco, the al pastor taco, and the pollo con mole taco. It was a literal orgasm in my mouth. To make the experience even better, I drank horchata and Jamaica water for the first time. At that moment, I decided that I needed to get to know the Latin American culture better if it had such amazing food. I discovered shortly after that Latin America not only had very tasty food, but also had very beautiful women. Something incredible about the Latino culture is that men can be friends with women. A lot of Latino men have beautiful Latina friends. Alan wasn't any different. He introduced me to his beautiful Chilanga friend, Diana. From the moment I saw her, Diana's energy infected me. That Latina happiness, if you don't already know, or if you don't know, is very infectious. 2 months after meeting each other, we became boyfriend and girlfriend. As you can imagine, when you date a Latina, you don't only date her, you are dating her parents, her siblings, her friends, and her entire family. That was my situation for 3 years, surrounded by the Latina Mexican culture. And while all Latinos have a rivalry with other Latinos, and many times they don't like to admit that other Latinos are cool, Diana introduced me to all of Latin America. She talked to me about all the Latinos, from the Argentinians to the Peruvians. During this time, I was so interested in Latin America that I decided to begin taking classes about Spanish, Latin American culture, and Latin American politics. I even went to Mexico for 1 week to travel around central Mexico with Diana and her family. It was a time of discovery for me. Unfortunately, like with many young relationships, we broke up after 3 years together. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a broken man. I had spent 3 years taking in all the information I could about Latino people, and in a second, I lost my main connection to Latin America. Not only that, 3 years surrounded by Mexicans and 3 semesters of Spanish classes, I couldn't speak Spanish or listen to it. I had for 3 years what everybody wants when they learn another language, a native speaker to practice with. At that moment, I thought I was never going to speak with Latinos again. Luckily, 3 months after my breakup with Diana, I got a kick in the ass from 2 polyglots. There was a video circulating around social media from a polyglot singing in 9 languages differently. I checked him out a bit more and I listened to his Spanish. It was fantastic. He'd spent 1 year in the department of Choco in Colombia and he almost sounded like a Chocano. At the same period of time, there were a few other videos circulating around of a polyglot by the name of Benny Lewis, who was learning languages in 3 months. Yes, he was the creator of the learn a language in 3 months. So if you ever see that and it annoys you, well, he is the reason that it exists. Both of these polyglots weren't geniuses. They were just normal human beings like you and I. I realized at that moment that there wasn't any reason that I couldn't learn Spanish. I decided that I was going to speak Spanish. I admit that my plan wasn't very sophisticated. My basic plan was speak, and speak more Spanish. 5 years later, and you can hear my Spanish in my videos that you see on social media. And 5 years later, well, actually, not 5 years later, I think by now it's about 7 years later. But 5 years after that, well, this is my journey. Until now, more or less. From September 2009 until October 2019. Well, actually, not till October 2019, until now, actually. This is the entire journey, all the significant events that happened to me. Of course, meeting Alan and Diana. And of course, taking my first semester Spanish classes. Going to Mexico City the first time. The second time in Mexico. Going to Colombia twice. Going to Argentina. Talking to Colombians online. Yeah, it's been a long, long journey. Now, it wasn't a short journey, as you can see, but I learned a lot. I learned that native speakers can teach you the slang and their culture, but they're horrible teachers. I learned that it's difficult to find people who are serious about practicing. I learned that the information on how to pronounce or speak with a nice neutral accent is confusing and incomplete. I learned that it's difficult to find a good methodology that doesn't leave you frustrated. And I learned that it's slow to learn without a good guide. And I soon realized that I wasn't the only one that felt this way. My own students complained about the same things. I had students who were 60 years old and had never advanced their English because of roadblocks like these. Other students at universities told me that their classes consisted of vocabulary lists and grammar exercises. Horrible. It reminded me of my painful French classes. I took 5 semesters of French, if you don't already know, but I have never had a conversation in the language. So I knew how my students felt. They felt stuck. Maybe you have been learning English for a long time, but you feel like you have made no progress. You can put yourself in these people's shoes. You realize you are not alone, and in case you still don't know, it's not your fault. Now, for me, learning languages is something fun. It's my passion. For you, it's more than just a language. It's the key to a better job, a better salary, and a better life. I have seen the same desire that you have now to learn English thousands of times. My students showed me that desire in their eyes because they knew I had an ability to teach English. They recognized that my experience learning Spanish had given me the ability to understand the roadblocks they faced. I didn't want to disappoint them, so I started to collect all the knowledge that I had gained in 14 years learning other languages and my 5 years of experience teaching English to Spanish speakers. Many students like you complained that they couldn't speak English even though they had taken classes for 1 year, 3 years, up to 5 years. I thought, researched, and put into practice techniques to make them speak English in record time. And they did it. Many students like you complained that they couldn't understand English speakers when they spoke normally, even if they lived in the United States. I thought, researched, and put into practice techniques to make my students understand English speakers easily, and they did it in no time. Many students like you complained that they couldn't speak like the native speakers, and English speakers thought that they had mental problems. I thought, researched, and put into practice techniques to help my students speak with the neutral accent that English speakers would love. and they did it. Now I've been creating this powerful and didactic methodology for over 2 years. And so far, more than 200 Spanish speakers have used my methodology. And now Andres is doing his master's in Australia. Carmelita has just become certified to be a dental hygienist in Miami. Dio's Belly is earning more tips in Orlando. Karen can finally participate in the school activities of her daughters in San Francisco. Vane is having her first conversations with gringo tourists in Costa Rica. Patricia is working as an au pair in Austin, Texas. And finally, Daisy can communicate with her in-laws. And of course, probably for people like you are trying to not end up like Juan from Colombia. So Juan, he's living in Canada right now, and he sent me this message. You can read it in Spanish if you want, but more or less, he sent me this message and he told me how right now he's been living in Canada for about 1 year, I believe he said. And, well, he's been having a hard time finding a job because of his bad English. And the job that he does have right now, he's very unhappy in because, well, his boss thinks that he's lazy because, well, not because he's lazy in Juan's perspective. It's not because he's lazy, it's just he can't understand English, and he's very frustrated because every day he goes into work and he tries to understand more English, but he doesn't see any improvement. And of course, he wants to find the best way to finally make that breakthrough, to finally reach fluency, to stop being frustrated like this, and to be able to open up the doors of opportunity. Now, I don't know your goal with English, but imagine that you're like me. You know that you're talented and that you deserve better than what you have right now. You know English can get you to where you need to be. You want to have more opportunities. You want to create greater security for you and your family. You want to explore the world. You want to meet people from all over the world. And if you're like myself, if you don't know, one of the main reasons that I learned Spanish was because I felt trapped as an English teacher. All of my students, well, in my case, all of my students spoke Spanish. And, well, I wasn't really happy with the institutes that I was working for. But of course, the only way that I could recruit students is if I spoke Spanish. So for me, Spanish wasn't just something I could use to talk with Latinos. It was the key to my future. So with Spanish, I have greater control over my career, over my future, and nobody can control me. And maybe for you, that's your reason for learning English, is that you want to have that freedom. You don't want people to be able to control how much money you make and what you can do with your life. Now, if you're interested in the methodology that I talked about quickly, the methodology that I created for my students, or if you just like to know what I do with my students so that they can learn quicker and so that you can use it yourself when you are learning English at home or in another institute, well, that's what I would like to do. So over the next few days, I'm going to be talking about the 3 keys that you can use, whether it's with me, with another institute, with another teacher, or just by yourself at home, to learn English, to reach that advanced, fluent level of English that you desire in as short amount of time as possible, as efficiently as possible. So, are you interested? Would you like to get to know more about my 3 keys to reaching fluency quickly? Yes? Well, I'm glad to hear that. So, tomorrow you're going to receive an email with a link for the next video and the first training video talking about the first key, which is about repetition. So how to get English vocabulary stuck in your head forever. So if you are excited about this, then be waiting for that email, and as soon as you receive it, you can watch the video. And of course, if you have any questions about something that you saw in this video, then write it in the comments below or send me an email. And I can't wait to see you tomorrow and to begin the training. I'll see you there.